Hi everyone, that's just open the recording now. Doing a cognitive memory test, and it's called a cognitive function test at foodforthebrain.org. I haven't put it in the chat, although I don't think you can see the chat when you're watching the recording. So create yourself a new account. Make up. So once you've signed up, well, you can just watch me do it. It doesn't really matter. It'd be best if you guys could do it along as well. Years in education, too many. Do I have any concerns about my memory? I'm getting old. So I'm just setting this up. If you guys want to do it along with me, that's fine. So the test is designed so that nobody is able to finish them. So if you finish them, well done. So this is testing my cognitive ability, because your memory is linked to your brain, isn't it? Who can think of some disorders where the memory might begin to be affected? Dementia, Alzheimer's. Kangaroo. So is anybody doing this along? Okay. So play along and see what kind of score you get. This is obviously it's an over-the-top example. It's designed to test if you have cognitive impairment in your memory for Alzheimer's. Hopefully nobody that does it scores that low. So if you're watching the recording or you're doing along, let's take about 15 minutes and then we'll talk about memory. But I'm going to test and see if my memory and cognitive abilities are above someone with Alzheimer's. Hello. And they say that I won't be able to finish these. So you're watching on the screen, you can probably just fast forward if you're watching the recording. There's a flower on the screen. It's a rose. There is a idea to this, don't worry. I'm not just randomly doing this for fun. Piece of sewing equipment. Scissors. So when you're talking about memory, does everyone remember the same stuff? Someone could look at this and think of something completely different. Couldn't they? Depends on our experiences. Tennis ball. So if you're working through this, I'll see you in a few minutes. If everyone watching on the screen or watching along, watch me hopefully not fail this, and then I've got Alzheimer's. Piece of cutlery. Spit. And then we'll start talking about memory. So close to him. So the point of this is we're going to get a baseline score. We're going to learn about memory. Next week, we're going to learn about how to improve your memory, how to train your brain. And then hopefully in a month's time after practicing that, your score will go up. Who's doing this along with me, as everyone is watching me struggle? Oh god. This is gonna be a guess for all of these because I didn't take note. No idea where they were. So these tests are really helpful, not only for what was that? Oh, that was a bit. The best way to improve your memory and your cognitive ability, the ability to apply that memory, is to practice. So here they're asking about your diet, remember. Is there a selection for 20 caffeinated drinks a day? Okay. Who can see my cognitive function test results? So not the best. 62. Any of you guys beat me, you're very upset. So how would I then improve my memory of my cognitive function tests from here? If I wanted to become a better 100-meter sprinter, what would I need to practice doing? So I would need to practice running 100 meters over and over. In order to improve your memory and your cognitive abilities, which is that memory recall and using logic, you need to practice it. There are people out there that are very, very good. I used to be very good at it. I used to be very good at sitting IQ tests for fun. And if you don't use it, you start to lose it. I mean, you guys aren't, it's not such a big thing now, but if you don't use this cognitive ability and this memory recall, then you lose it. There's lots of different programs out there that allow you to practice memory recall. You go to the gym a lot, you build muscle, you stop working out, the muscle disappears. Same thing with your brain. When you're young and you're studying, you build these great connections, and then people, all of a sudden, they stop doing. So they stop practicing. So you got 66, very good. Sorry, Anna got 66. So Anna, how would you get better at doing this? How would you get a better score? Do you think constantly doing this and constantly practicing will make you better at it? It definitely will. The more you practice memory recall, the more you build those connections, the more you practice that memory recall. So I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to share my friend's presentation that he made. He's a psychologist. He's very wordy. What's memory? Anyone want to give me a definition for memory? Stuff that's in your brain. There's a big difference between memory and having the ability to recall that memory. How many times you go to answer a question, you go, I know this, I just can't get it out of my head. Kelly says, so much. So, lots of people have really good memory. Not everyone has a really good memory recall and the ability to get that memory out of your head. So humans have sensory memories. I know that if I put my finger on the hot plate, it's going to burn my finger. Short-term memory, which is our working memory, it's kind of constantly flying around in our head, which is less than 1 minute. And the 2 days leading up to the senior chemistry exam for Queensland, the QCE, it was today, it was this morning, and I refused to do any sessions this morning, or even last night. My final session for that was at 9 o'clock yesterday. Because if it's not in your brain 24 hours before, it's not going to stick in there. It takes time to go from short-term to long-term memory. And there is little point trying to cram more information in. Izzy, what'd you get? I bet it's something really hard. Yeah, you too. Well done. Izzy, woo, you got better than me. Fine. So you don't have Alzheimer's. Izzy, well done. So we have long-term memory. So implicit is unconscious. That's the decisions our brain uses that memory to make decisions for us, to keep us safe. Procedural memories. Who's done something? Well, just writing is a procedural memory. You don't have to really think when you're writing, do you? It just kind of happens. Explicit, which is your conscious mind. So you have declarative memory, which is facts and events. Episodic, which is events, experiences. Somatic, which is facts and concepts. The thing that I don't like is that it's often taught that these are not linked together. So events and experience are closely linked to facts and concepts. If you had cancer and then 5 years later you're studying cancer at university, you're more likely to remember and retain the information you're being taught because you already have an event where you have context to apply that information to. These are not completely separate things. So I'm not going to go through these and read them out because we'll be here for hours. Short term is the important one. It's the working memory. So you either dismiss it and you don't remember, or it gets committed to long-term memory. Ever thought, oh, I only read that 5 minutes ago, why can't I remember it? You have 1 minute of short-term memory. So we have to transfer it to the long-term memory. And there's lots of things that you can do to enhance that transfer and ensure that transfer happens. So declarative stores facts. Some people are better at storing information in different ways than other people. I have 1,000,001 facts in my brain. Ask me where I put my car keys this morning. No idea. Absolutely no idea. And declarative memory is not very good. Facts are completely useless. So if you just memorize things using rote learning, it's stored in the declarative memory. Declarative memory can be consciously discussed, but it's hard to get into, especially if you're anxious. So procedural memory, you don't ever have to learn to ride a bike again, do you? You learn once. Doesn't matter if you don't ride a bike for 10 years, you get on the bike and you know how to do it. So when you're talking about procedural memory and you need to learn procedures, doing them over and over and understanding them is really important. So if, and this is why studying exam questions and learning how to answer exam questions is so important, because you just run through the same procedure when you're answering them, as opposed to just trying to learn everything there is to know about the topic. Again, no. So, memory span. Everyone has a different memory. So the average span for normal adults is 7 to 9. Kids, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 15. Things that affect your memory span, so your ability to, how much information in one time you may be able to apply to your brain. Things like anxiety, stress, distractions, diet, how much water you've had, all affect your ability to apply memory. Your brain has 2 modes, fight or flight, and going full ball and being anxious and stressed, or being happy and relaxed and able to apply short-term memory to long-term memory. If you're stressed out of your mind, do you think that you're really going to be applying much of what you're reading to the long-term memory, or do you think it's going to get lost in there? Yes, it will get lost. Yeah, again, not hugely. So methods for improving memory. Does anyone have any ideas before we go into it? So you think you can improve your memory by memorizing? So we're improving our ability to memorize. So we're not trying to learn, we're just trying to improve our ability to memorize things. Do you ever walking along the street and just something pops into your head and you're like, where did that come from? So I do it all the time. And then I verbalize it to my wife and she looks at me like I'm crazy. So that's free recall, serial recall. And this is why I draw flowcharts. This is why we learn things in the correct order or a jumbled order. It doesn't matter. And this is why I say when you're in an exam, just keep writing. Start writing something and something will pop out of your head and then you start and then you continue down the line. Worst thing you can do in an exam is stop writing because your serial recall is now gone. Once you start writing exam, just keep going. Because eventually, if you've learned something in the correct sequence, the next step will come out. It might take a bit longer, but eventually something will come out that will help you along. So the clued or the cued recall is not really relevant in an exam, unless you've got your mate standing out in the window giving you hand signals. Okay. So recognition. Who thinks of something that's happened in the past and memories come flooding back? And this is again another one of my weird tricks when I'm teaching someone, is you apply the information to a memory. You apply the information to something that's happened in the past, something they can remember, because they recognize in their brain that that event is linked to the information that's been stored. This doesn't matter hugely to you guys because you're not old, but relearning. So constantly going over information. And if you've ever had me as a tutor, we go way back before we go forwards. Because it doesn't take long to jog your memory of things you've already done. And then it's relearned and it's fresher in your mind. And then you're able to apply that knowledge better to the more complex concepts. Okay. Everybody works differently. We did that last week, right? So some people listen to music. Music is really good for helping to transfer memory from short term to long term. Also, it helps you to focus. Auditory, oh, that's listening at the moment. Tactile, some people like when they're learning things, they'll hold something sharp in their hand and stab themselves. It's a very strange one, but people do it. Who smells food and instantly gets hungry? Smells their favorite food, instantly get hungry. Yeah, me all the time. I'm hungry all the time. So smell is strongly linked to your memories. I've known people that studied with a certain deodorant, and if they smelled someone else wearing it, immediately the things they studied came back. Some people are a bit weird. So rehearsal or going over things. When an actor's trying to learn lines, do they just read the lines once and then should be fine? Or constantly going over it, constantly getting someone else to read to them, constantly doing it in different places. So rehearsal, practice, and eventually it will stick in your noggin. This is interesting. So you have lots of people think they have mastered the topic, but once you have stopped learning about something, then you quickly go backwards. So just keep learning more and more about a topic. And this is why I don't just teach acids and bases. I got some kid yesterday, he had a cut on his foot, so I got him to put lemon juice in. And then what would happen if he then put baking soda? Like, it's just about going over and building on the layers of knowledge. And I think most of you guys were here when I did that in the beginning. It's the 5 layers of knowledge. If you can learn at each of those 5 levels, you should be able to learn any and all concepts. I might actually do that next week, actually. Might be a good idea. Okay, space practice. I think we've talked about this, but doing 15-minute intervals. Yes, Kelly, I know. But he learned what acids were. There is a story behind it. He told me that acids was 7 to 14 and was adamant about it. So I said, well, if you put lemon juice, it's a base. It shouldn't hurt if you put it on the cut of your foot. And he was determined to prove me wrong, and he learned the hard way that I was right. So 20 minutes at a time, 5 minutes off, half an hour on, 10 minutes off. It doesn't matter, but the spacing out will help your memory retention a lot. I've talked about this before, but organizing information. So whatever information you have, organizing it in your brain. And that's where putting it into flowcharts comes in handy. See, some people learn better when you break a concept into smaller bits and then put them together. Some people learn when they learn the entire concept out of in one go. Who's a smaller bits kind of person? So the science says that it's better to learn everything as a whole, but not everyone's brain works the same, we know that. This is my favorite one. So learning about, trying to teach the seniors this year about the Haber process, the Haber process, which is the creation of ammonia from the air. Now the guy that won this, the guy that came up with this idea he won a Nobel Prize in chemistry. But he was also a Nazi. Now, who developed chemical weapons that they used. Is that relevant information for a chemistry exam? So, but what does it do? Create something meaningful and memorable from random pieces of information. So you see the Haber process in an exam, you're like, oh, that's a Nazi guy. Oh, he produced ammonia, and now we make bombs out of ammonia. It's from the air, which has, do you see that kind of link that's being created in people's brains? Most people look at me when I'm teaching, like, why are you telling me this? And then all of a sudden, when they sit in an exam, it makes sense. Yeah. Works really good when the order of the items is very important. If you're trying to learn a very specific flow chart, then chunking may not work best. Get feedback when you're studying. when you're studying, it's a lot easier to remember the things you put out, right? Seemingly. If you attach a positive connotation to what you're studying, it improves your motivation, but it also improves the retention of that memory to the long-term memory. Okay. Interference. Do not sit there with the TV on in the background, or if only half of your brain is watching, or if half of your brain is watching the TV and the other half is watching what's in front of us, do you really think you're really going to retain any information? And if you're doing a 15-minute block on English, 15-minute block on chemistry, 15-minute block on business studies, 15-minute block on whatever, PE, that is not as efficient as doing 4 15-minute blocks of each subject, like the same subject one after the other. You're trying to build and reinforce concepts in your mind. Make sure that you're consistently working on the same subjects. Well, we'll finish on the brain exercise. Oh, no. So we have the score behind me. I got 62. To be fair, I was trying to get through it fairly quickly. The only way to improve my cognitive ability and improve my memory is to train it. If you don't use your memory or your brain, you lose it. So most people will go backwards with age. It's a natural thing because not everybody's, you build the cognitive ability and the memory at school, and then it peaks and then it declines after you leave school or university. I'm sure in 2014, when I was still at uni, my score would have been significantly higher than that. So you want to run really fast, then you need to practice running really fast. You want to be really good at memorizing things, memorize lots of things. So aerobic exercise will help with memory retention. It also stops your body from, and your mind and body from degrading quite as quickly. So I'm going to finish it here because next week we'll actually do some brain exercises and practice. But your diet needs to be good. Most teenagers don't have a very good diet. I don't have a very good diet some days. But your brain needs fats. Not like McDonald's kind of fats, but fish, dairy, if you're allowed to have dairy, oils. Some people take fish oil, those kind of things. But if all you're eating is ice cream and chips and Red Bull, which is what most people do when they are studying, you're not really giving yourself the best fighting chance to increase that memory retention. So next week's going to be at 6 p.m. This will be the final week, but it was supposed to finish this week, but we have the missed week. So it will be on actually how can we train our brains to memorize things better? This is just what can you do? You can get all kinds of tests and stuff on the internet, but what can we do to make sure that A, we retain the memories, and B, how do we get better at it? Because if you could increase your marks simply by getting better at remembering something, not by actually learning more, is that not a good thing?